Well, most of Europe either has tremendously hot weather or so much so that it's actually, unfortunately, on fire. But here in Britain, Brexit means Brexit, which means that anything that Europe is doing, we're not going to do almost out of protest, and that includes good weather. Apparently there should be a heat wave right around the corner, but according to the Daily Mail and the Evening Standard, there's supposed to be a heat wave almost every week, and there has been for the past 25 years. But high heat fragrances are most certainly a genre within themselves. I'm going to tell you my take on hot weather, intense hot weather, high heat, heat wave fragrances, and I'm going to present to you 10 that I think are ideal for extremely hot temperatures. We're talking 30 degrees centigrade and above. Of course, many different reviewers and enthusiasts will have their different interpretations of what suits hot weather and what doesn't, but there are some basic rules. Nothing cloying, no sweetness, no woods, no oud, no leather, no nonsense. What I generally like is watery fragrances that are really quite light. They utilise citruses responsibly. They don't overcrowd the citruses. They don't turn up the sweetness on the citruses too much. No, light, watery, level, low projection, that's what's best. Of course, if you don't know, when you're wearing fragrances in intense high heat, you perspirate quite a lot, and this adds an extra oomph and an extra level of performance to the fragrances for you. I've had fragrances that I didn't think actually performed very well at all, but in high heat situations, they're beasts. So we are going to go from 10 to 1 here. There is a hierarchy of this list, with 10 being, you know, a very good recommendation, but number 1 being my top recommendation to you. Let's get into it. Number 10, there's pros and cons of this fragrance. This is Ralph Lauren's unexpected hit from last year. This is Polo Deep Blue. There are two camps with this fragrance. One thinks that it's just a very whatever, stereotypical blue fragrance. The other camp thinks that this is a revolutionary blue fragrance that's very deep and tropical and a cut above many other designer blue fragrances. I'd say that it's somewhere in the middle. In fact, I'd tell you, in the opening, it's absolutely marvellous, fantastic, great in the high heat. There is a tropical mango vibe to enjoy. It's nothing spectacular, nothing like Oud Rain by Renier, but it's pleasant, it's nice, it's synthetic, but it is what you pay for. And then gradually over time, yes, this turns into sort of mostly every blue fragrance that you've smelt, but it's not as cloying. The sweetness, strangely, is turned down. There's more linen in this really than there is sweetness, so that helps this a lot in high heat scenarios. There isn't as much sugar, you won't be gasping for air, and the price is not terrible. In general, this is an impressive fragrance by Ralph Lauren. It is their biggest hit for, well, many years, so it is worth checking out. Number 9 is this. This is Dolce & Gabbana Light Blue Love is Love. This is essentially light blue Eau Intense, but you cut out the linen and you give a watery, green, grassy accord to it. There's apparently a gelato accord, which is ice cream in here. No. Actually, what I get from this more is a very nice, smooth, green, budget-friendly designer fragrance that does very well in the high heat, and that is the watery texture that's in this. You can get a very big bottle of this for not a lot of money, so it's somewhat cheap and cheerful. It will always probably get a good reaction from people in the high heat or sort of in any scenario, so it's something to check out. We've done 2 designers, let's go to a niche. This is Terralba by MASQUE Milano. Now, this is really quite wonderful. This is a little bit spicy, but also a little bit herby, a little bit aromatic. I get a nice spicy and watery juniper berry from this with some green leaves around it. Very pleasant, very unassuming, done very well. The blending is quite excellent. The only problem with this and why it's so low on the list is that it really does not last. In the high heat, as I've said, it does do very well, but I want to wear this more than just high heat occasions. In the high heat, this is pleasant and the performance is okay, but anything below 27 degrees centigrade, I really do struggle with this performance-wise. Back to a couple of designers. This is Versace Man Eau Fraiche. I talked about this in a review I did a few years back. I talked about how the fact that what this smells like to me, very specifically, is you've just been in the pool at a hotel. It's been a really, really hot day, 30 degrees centigrade higher. You've gone into the pool, you've got chlorine and all of the different elements that are in pool water. You get out of the pool, the water hits the surface, of course it'll be extraordinarily dusty because of the heat, and the chlorine and the different elements of the pool water mixed in with the dust and the heat of the surface kind of create this smell. And that's what Versace Man Eau Fraiche has always smelled to me, which is not really an unpleasant smell at all. Great classic woody aroma, great classic woody aquatic with Versace Man Eau Fraiche. I go into detail with it completely in the review. Number 6 is this. This is Dunhill Century. I do really get why this didn't do well. In fact, I don't want to sound like Max Forte here and jumping the gun, but if somebody told me that this guy here, if you can see it, gets discontinued, I wouldn't be at all surprised, because it's not a very designery designer. It's very green, smells a little bit like Gucci Pour Homme 2, also smells like Chai by Robert Piguet. There's a lot of greenery, there's a lot of grassy, foresty elements in here, but it's toned down. It does have that watery texture that is prevalent in all of these fragrances. So that is great for high heat, and it is something different, it is something unique, it's something that not everybody's going to smell like, for better or for worse. Like I said, it's not your typical designer, so it's worth checking out in that respect if you want something that's really quite different in the designer world with this genre of fragrance. But also do be warned that you may not like it because of that reason also. Number 5 is this, and this is really, really wonderful. I've had this for ages. This is VETIVER. This is VETIVER de Heever. I keep, after, God, 4 or 5 years, I always want to call this VETIVER Babylon. First of all, it's easy to say. But yeah, this was originally VETIVER Babylon. It's no different. So this is a very light, greenish, grassy vetiver with a really bright and well-made natural orange accord. That's pretty much it. It's essentially orange juice with some water, and in that water is a green, grassy sort of vetiver bobbing along. Really simple, really lovely, but the results are magical. I've had this for about 4 years now, and in the intense high heat, I've worn this to great success. Please note, it's the orange juice accord, the very natural, the very real, freshly squeezed orange accord that's sort of surrounded by this grassy green wateriness. That is the star of the show with this fragrance, and it's just absolutely bloody brilliant. Number 4 is this. This is, of course, Bobo by CARNER. I've been talking a lot about this. This is a great Mediterranean holiday smell. This reminds me of a lot of the smells of the Mediterranean, and it has some white florals, but there's something in here that gives it this creamy warmth that reminds me somewhat of the texture and the tone of vanilla. I kind of get a vanilla sort of smell, but it's more that texture of what vanilla is, of that kind of like creamy, nice baked warmth, along with some very nice, well-developed white florals. As I've warned many times, this is feminine. Quite a few of these niche fragrances are unisex, so if you're a female viewer as well, things like Bobo and especially VETIVER de Heever and TERRALBA is definitely something that you should be checking out. But I'd say that these next 3 included are very much unisex, including this one, Salted Green Mango. This is Alicia's favourite fragrance in my collection, and that's something to be said because, as you've seen recently, Alicia does not mess about. She knows what she likes. I think I've summarised this fragrance many times. It's the outer shell of a mango. You're literally smelling the shell of the mango whilst you're outside. This is not the innards of the mango. So yeah, it's the outer shell of a mango, but that smell is turned up. It's a lot more saturated. There is, of course, that saltiness, but it's not too intense. It could have been a lot more saltier, in which it could have been off balance, off key and off kilter, and that wouldn't have worked. Very light, but yet very fulfilled. This is built, this is why it's so high. It's really optimized for high heat. You can wear this in lower temperatures, you can wear this, you know, in summer, but really when it's getting hot, and also when it's quite humid, this really is where this fragrance shines really well. Number 2, I was tempted to actually put another print on this list, but I thought, you know, one's kind of enough. And not just that, but I've been wearing this fragrance a lot recently, and I wanted to talk about how much I love it. This is Oranges Lemons, Say the Bells of St. Clements by James Heeley. Wow. So if you're a fan of any of the Acqua di Parma fragrances at all, whether it be Colonia, the original, or Intensa, Absoluta, Essenza, Facebook, MySpace and Friendster, whichever one that you like from the Colonia line, I would highly recommend that you check this out, because this is the Colonia DNA, sort of on steroids in a way, and a lot more vivid. This is kind of like if you wore Acqua di Parma, one of the Colonias, but you took like a hallucinogen and everything's like really, really vivid and really, really intense and sort of intensified. That's what this fragrance is like. There's some vetiver in here that really, really gives it some depth and some grit. And the citrus neroli is a lot more sharper and harsher than the Acqua di Parma fragrances. Of course, the Acqua di Parma fragrances are great, but they're soft, they're very wearable, they're to covet a general audience. It still has that ability, but this is going for a less friendlier, let's say, approach, a more harsher approach than the Acqua di Parma fragrances. With that being said, in the high heat, it's still, I mean, it's a ride, you know, and it's a lot more of an intense ride than the Acqua di Parma fragrances, and you will get probably a lot more out of it sensory wise and olfactory wise, but it's never too much, especially if you apply only, you know, 3 or 4 sprays. Yeah, if applied correctly, this can be an absolute treat on the skin in really high heat. As for number 1, there's one fragrance that's missing here that you've probably noticed. Oh, actually, I'll make it a bit more difficult. It's not Millésime Impérial. So think of the other fragrance that might be here. And now that you know, that I know, that you know what it probably is, well, we might as well just stop the video there. Well, it's lovely seeing you. See you next time. All right. I'm just kidding. It's this. Don't look at me like that. This is absolutely bloody brilliant. It's masterful. Absolute mastercraft. You know that everybody sings the praises of this thing. Dior Homme Cologne. Really, truly one of the really, truly the magnum opus of the cologne genre, in a way, no matter what creed may tell you. This is probably the most beautifully nuanced cologne style fragrance, or cologne flanker, definitely. Very, very supple lemon and citrus, bit of linen, but the point is to make everything smell real, smell natural, smell balanced, almost as though it's been polished and it's shining. The price is a little bit high, and as far as I know, it's been untouched. It's still the same. What you're going to buy right now is the same as what I have here, but it's fantastic, a great fragrance, and I would totally recommend it. So these are my high heat fragrances. I would love to know what high heat fragrances you are going to be wearing when the temperatures get, well, you know, quite high. Anyway, I'm the Fragrance Prince. Thank you for watching, and see you soon.